We really appreciate you all joining us for this webinar, Demystifying Service Portal for ServiceNow. My name is Tim from Cerna Solutions, and the reason why we wanted to do this webinar today is really because we've been talking with a lot of our customers who had questions about Service Portal. And we wanted to do something that was accessible for everyone to see how valuable Service Portal is, how easy to set up it is. This may be a little bit basic. This may be a little bit more on the a high-level overview, so it's not as much of a technical instructional video on how to really get your elbows dirty in Service Portal, but it is definitely a way for you to see how to get started and if it's going to be the right fit for your organization. You are able to ask questions throughout this webinar, so if you do have anything that pops into your head, definitely feel free to hop over to the panel on the, well, whatever side of the screen you have your panel set up. There's a section there for questions where you can go ahead and ask questions anytime during the presentation, and we will be addressing them all at once at the end during the question and answers portion of that. We will also make this recording available to everyone that registered, so if you just signed up for this and if you need to log off early or if you want to view any of this materials again or share it with anyone else in your company, we will be sending that out and that will be accessible to you that way as well. Just as an introduction, if you're not already familiar with Cerna Solutions, we do specialize in ServiceNow consulting with expertise in implementations, integrations, and unique product offerings. We also do work in administrative services such as managed services like our virtual admin program, automated testing like our Capio automated testing solutions for ServiceNow, and security operations management, as well as a high focus right now in Service Portal. Speaking of which, just kind of going into our sales pitch, which we will get out of the way at the beginning of this webinar. What we do in Cerna Solutions to work with Service Portal is to create custom portals that do meet your organization's unique requirements. And we say that because we know that a lot of people that try to work with Service Portal may try a one-size-fits-all templated sort of turnkey solution, and that doesn't usually work best for most organizations from what we've seen. What we like to do is create a unique, stable, and manageable interface that's really best for your specific organization. That comes with a complimentary assessment workshop where we start off by finding out what are your requirements, finding out what makes your organization such a unique, such a specific set of requirements, and work with you on creating a plan and a roadmap for making those requirements into a reality. And then we offer post-implementation support. Obviously, if we create something for you, we want to make sure that it's working for you in the long haul. So definitely make sure that if you're trying to create a portal through us, that we are there and available to walk you through making sure that it's a complete success for your organization. And we do come with over 7 years experience in building custom employee portals. So we do have a very strong set of skills that a lot of people have needed to see this type of project become successful. Right now, I would like to introduce Garrett Griffin Morales. He has been with our company since, I want to say 2014, but he's been working with ServiceNow since for over 6 years at this point. He is a certified administrator, implementer, and developer. He is certified trainer and ITIL certified. And he has worked with really some of our largest customers, and right now he does manage our consulting services. So we're very proud to have Garrett with us as a company. We're very happy to have him right now on this webinar. And Garrett, I'll go ahead and throw it to you.
All right, thank you, Tim. Much appreciated. As we get going here, we're about to talk about what we're going to talk about today. I do want to mention that I do have somebody else on the call here today. I have Jeff Pierce all the way from Hawaii who's joining us. He's our Service Portal expert. He runs that part of our business. I'm here to talk about kind of the basics and the overview today and how it might apply to you. But Jeff will be here to help interject as he sees things that he thinks he needs to help elaborate on, or as I ask him a question. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session when Jeff will also be able to help chime in. So go ahead and say hello for us, Jeff.
Aloha, everybody. Happy to be here. Help out however I can. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. So today we're going to talk about the employee experience. Specifically, we'll be talking about Service Portal. What is Service Portal? How do you use it? How does it impact the employee experience? So we're going to be talking about those things, and that's really our main topic here. We're going to look at the Service Portal, contrast it to the previous version of what ServiceNow used for that employee experience, and that's the CMS. We're going to talk about how it's different, so those of you that have the CMS set up or have worked with it, you can understand what those differences there are. We're going to talk about what capabilities the Service Portal has for those of us that don't know any code. What can we change? What's simple? What's straightforward? We're going to look at some of those examples and make sure you understand how to get into the system to access those. And then we're going to look at what a ServiceNow developer who has some general idea of what they're doing can modify in the Service Portal. These are not necessarily the complex things such as creating a new widget or modifying a widget like we talked about. These are the what can you do to, say, rearrange how things look on a page and different things along those lines. So we'll take a look at some of those intermediate type tasks. And finally, we'll look at the complex ones, creating a new widget, actually modifying the code of a widget, seeing how complex things can get when you need to reach out for somebody to help you out, whether that's a partner or somebody else, when you need to seek out that expert resource. Finally, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session where I'm sure Jeff will be able to answer any questions that I personally don't know. So we'll cover that at the end. But please feel free, as Tim said, go ahead and write your questions throughout the entire webinar if you have any, and then during the end is when we'll go ahead and pay attention to those and answer them specifically. So looking at the employee experience, when I talk about the employee experience, I'm referring to your end users, the people that just say, I need to reset a password. You know, I've got a problem with my laptop, or I need to order a new mouse because my old mouse, you know, it was no longer sufficient for my needs. Whatever that kind of behavior is, whether it's those types of things that are IT related or if it's HR focused things such as requesting a leave of absence or putting a notice, whatever it might be, that end user experience, these people that just interface with ServiceNow to request things, that's what we're focused on here. Certainly there's the ITIL side. There's the actual people that work HR cases or security incident cases or changes, whatever those people are. They're going to access the native interface most of the time. They're going to work inside the core of ServiceNow that most of us know very well. It's the end users, again, the people that are just requesting things. We're focused on their experience here today. So how important is it? Well, talking to the leaders that are in charge of that employee experience, of the people that need to make sure that all the tools are there for those employees. Oftentimes it's the HR department. We found that 83% of those individuals are, say, the employee experience is very important and it is vital for the success of the organization. This lines up with everything I've seen. The companies that do focus on the employee experience back on either CMS or Service Portal, they tend to be the most successful getting buy-in from their users, having a happy employee experience, and having individuals that know where to go to request the things they need. However, of those people that say it's very important, only 22% have said they're excellent at actually building it out and they've got everything they need. So 22% of everyone says, I'm good to go. The rest of them, that's what 78% says, I have issues. I need actually to develop something to get this to where we need it to be. So we've got the high number of 82% that need it. We've got the low number, 22% that say it's taken care of. And then we've got 59% that say, you know, we're really not ready to even take that step yet, that it's an overwhelming step, that it's complicated, that, you know, we don't have the expertise needed to take it on. So that 59% of people is really a large number of people to say, you know, we're not ready to go there. Our hope is that throughout the rest of our talk here today, you're going to have the information you need about ServiceNow to go ahead and say, look, we can at least get started on it. Or I can push somebody to go ahead and work to get this implemented because we know what's there, we know what it takes, we understand where the complexities lie. Let's go ahead and tackle this challenge. So what is Service Portal specifically, since we're trying to demystify this? Service Portal is ServiceNow's latest solution for creating an employee interface. So this is their method for creating something that looks like a modern website with a modern look and feel that your end users are going to come into to, you know, open an incident or to order something, etc. It is designed for an intuitive experience. If you think Google or Amazon type web pages, it's intended to be straightforward and you see, you know, what you see is what you get. You know where to click, that kind of a thing. It's got a modern look and feel. That is the intent, is for it to look modern, for it to look like the other websites you use today, whereas the CMS wasn't quite that way. It does replace the CMS. Now, when we say replace, if you have an existing CMS site today, it's not going away. So, and this is, again, CMS is the old version of the employee portal in ServiceNow and how you built that out. If you already have one, that's not going to suddenly be turned off. However, new functionality is only being built into the service portal. So if there's special things that they're adding in, they're doing that work in the service portal. They're not doing that work back in the legacy CMS anymore. Additionally, once you get several releases out, right now we're in the Istanbul release. Once you get to the K release or something like that, they stop supporting the old ServiceNow releases. So once you get to that point, at some point they're going to stop really supporting or focusing on the CMS, and it's going to be harder for you to get high support. So that's something else to keep in mind when we talk about what the service portal is. It does replace that. It is a move that you're going to have to make eventually, even if you already have an existing CMS. This is only a couple of releases old. Jeff and I were talking earlier, and he helped to spell out for me that it was available in Geneva, but you had to specifically request a plugin. In Helsinki, it became kind of a more standard. It was there for you to use. But Istanbul is where it's really made some improvements, really become more stable. So the release we're on now is really prime time for Service Portal to be adopted. It's really gone through its rough phase, the alpha, the beta, and it's ready for prime time. And so that's what we're going to look at. We think it's time for people to start moving that direction. Jakarta will probably, which is coming out in a month, will likely also include improvements and some changes for the better in the service portal, as well as more content for you to use directly right out of the gate. How is it different from the old version? How is it different from CMS? I mentioned a few things already, but one of the biggest ones is that it's more modular. The service portal is built on widgets. These widgets are reusable. You can have options within them. You can configure it to work on different tables. You can configure it to work for different clients, different colors, different styles, all that different kind of stuff. Whoever builds the widget can build in all these different types of options that you can just toggle in the future. That's the same with all the out-of-box widgets that are there already native to the platform. They all have all these options that you can modify. And we're going to look at that in a few minutes. It's responsive. Now, when I say responsive, this is a web development term. What this means is that when you go to look at the website on your computer, the service portal that you've developed, and then you go to look at it at your phone, the same website will work for both. If on your computer it's 3 columns wide or 2 columns wide, when you go to look at it on your phone, it may only be 1 column wide. It's responsive to the device you're looking at it on, and it properly changes the design as necessary while still maintaining the same functionality. It's got a new table structure. What this really means to you is that when you go to move to the service portal, if you have an existing CMS, there's no one-click easy button. There's no just shift things over or anything along those lines. It actually is a rebuild from scratch to replicate what you already have in your CMS. Yes, that's a lot of work if you already have a very mature CMS, but it is something that's going to need to be done. It is something to be aware of, that it is a new table structure. Now, that said, they went with the new table structure in order to support the new modern frameworks, to support the new modern look and feel of websites, and to make it more powerful, more modular, more reusable, etc. So there's a reason why they went this direction. You can also have different layouts versus the CMS. So you can use what often is built on functionality called Bootstrap. You can have Bootstrap themes and layouts and things along these lines. So it goes in line with open source technologies that other websites are built on out there, which means that the web developers who are now building this stuff for the service portal can leverage some of what's already there, or they may have experience from their past jobs with actually building similar kinds of things for non-ServiceNow style websites.
Okay. Garrett, an interesting thing to note about the layouts is you can create layouts via drag and drop. You actually don't have to know any coding or any kind of web development at all. So that's one of the really great things about Service Portal is you can create responsive web layouts just by dragging content from the content menu onto the screen, and it makes it really, really easy.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. That's excellent. I haven't actually messed with that a whole lot, so that's great to hear. So there you go. On top of all of this, you can even do layouts far easier. There's no jelly script. For those of you that know what jelly script is or have messed with that in the past, You still use it these days on UI pages or UI macros in ServiceNow, but when it comes to Service Portal, it now uses Angular. There's no more gelling involved. It is a different skill set. It means that people may have a bit of a learning curve if they are doing the coding aspect of it, but it's also a positive because we're no longer using this kind of special home-based kind of thing. Instead, we're going towards the open source technologies that everybody uses as far as Angular, Bootstrap, etc.
Yeah, just a quick interesting thing about JellyScript versus Angular is JellyScript meant that you're going to evaluate business logic as the page loads, and once that stuff gets loaded on the page, it's there. Angular means that you can respond to clicks, respond to user input, everything at any time, not just when the page loads. So Angular provides a much more powerful functionality than Jelly did. Jelly was very limited. It'll only work as your page load, but Angular provides constant interaction between your user and the server. So it's very, very powerful.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. You might be able to speak to this one some too, Jeff. I can say that I know it's more stable. I know they've locked down a lot of the functionality that would cause things to break during upgrades. You can't even use that type of functionality in the Service Portal, which is something to know. It's a bit of a learning curve for us to make sure we're doing everything based on best practice, whereas before these practices may not have been existed or standardized. But because of all of that, it is definitely more stable. I've not seen issues as we go from one upgrade to another with things breaking, and it really does just kind of function more consistently.
Yeah, CMS was actually just kind of buggy. Even building a very out-of-box CMS portal, there are still things that just were a little bit wonky. So Service Portal is much more stable in that sense.
Excellent. There's better widgets. I talked about how this is more modular and reusable. Because of the way it's set up, it's designed to allow more complex widgets, better functionality, more modular, meaning you can pick these up, you can set them in a different page on your Service Portal, you can share them out with the community, other people could use them. They're better designed, better architected, and again, as Jeff says, the way that it handles interaction between the client and the server and interaction with the user and their browser, everything just kind of works better. Anything to add there, Jeff?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well.
Okay, great. And finally, it's more accelerated. Your time to actually get this up and running, if you've never done anything before for an employee portal, is going to be a shorter runway than what you needed in the past. There's more stuff available for you to use just out of the gate, and the stuff that's there is easier for you to configure by dragging and dropping, changing colors around and things along those lines. Even if you need to do something more custom, something more advanced, it's still going to be faster for those individuals to develop that and to work with it than the old CMS framework would have been. Now that said, I don't want to mislead anyone. If you already have a mature, very robust CMS set up, moving that over into the Service Portal is not going to be quick. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be something that will take some time. It is going to be a project and an effort, and you need to set aside that time properly. But that said, once you take the move, making more changes, etc., will be faster with the Service Portal generally than it would have been with doing so with the CMS. All right, what can we do without coding? Let's start to tear apart the Service Portal to make sure we understand it. You would navigate into your instance. In the left-hand navigation, you would go to, say, the Service Portal configurator. That's going to open up a page that's got a few different links on it, and you could click one in particular that I'm about to talk about that helps you actually design things. One of the pages in there, one of the coolest things that you can do with this that I find to be pretty awesome is I can go in there and under theme colors right here, you'll see I can change the page background, the button default background, all the text colors, all the different kind of stuff. It lets me set all of these up. Now the widgets themselves use these different styles for all the different coloring and text that they have, and just by changing this, I would see on the right-hand side how it's going to change things around, how things will look, and then everything in my Service Portal will use those proper colors. So this is great to look at your company style guide, quickly set things up to be the colors that you want. And it's very simple, very straightforward, and you can do this without understanding any coding whatsoever. In addition to that, there's menus. Obviously here you're seeing that I can change how the menus look. There are also places in here in the service portal you can easily go to change what the actual menus say. What are the links there? What are things along those lines? And that's something you can do very straightforward too. You can change the page layout, as Jeff was saying. You can drag around where things show up on the page, and I've got, I believe, a screenshot of that here in just a second. Finally, you can change the widget configuration, and you can do that by right-clicking, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You'll be able to control right-click and change how things look and what's set up with all of that. The branding editor is where you're going to go. So if you've gone in, you've gone to Service Portal Configurator, the branding editor is going to be one of like 6 text boxes. If you want to go in and modify those colors like that other screenshot you just saw, the branding editor is where you go to do so, and then it's going to pop up. You're going to pick what service portal you're working on right from that drop dot right at the top left that says Service Portal. You're going to pick which portal you're working on. You're going to go to Theme Colors, and you're going to be able to pick those colors. If you stay on the Quick Setup tab, this is what you're going to see, the title and logo. You can change the title of your service portal. You can change the logo to be the logo of your company. And you can even do great things with the padding around the logo, etc. So you can see that very quickly. I can jump to the out-of-box service portal. I can look to see what it looks like. I can change my colors. I can add my logo. And even with that, you may already be a long ways towards where you need to be for making sure the service portal works and provides that employee experience that you need. You can also look at the tagline in the background. This is just further down on the Quick Setups tab, and I'm able to say this is the tagline, this is what the background image is, this is what color it is, etc. And I can set all of those details up to figure out how I want the service portal to look. How can I modify a widget instance settings? So widgets are something that's built to be reusable. Every time we place them on a page, that's a widget instance. And I may need to change on this particular page. This widget is displaying a list, but a list of what? A list of instances, a list of incidents, a list of changes, or a list of HR cases. I can decide what is it showing a list of. Well, if I hold down Control as an admin and I right-click on the header bar of whatever widget I'm wanting to modify, in this case, I clicked on the current status widget. It's going to go ahead and pull up this little pop-up for me. It's going to say, these are the different things you can do. You can edit all of these different kinds of things. If I want to edit the instance in the page designer, I can modify go into page designer, drag things around in the page to change the layout. I'm going to show that in a second. In this particular case, I want to modify the widget instance settings. I want to change those different properties that we said that they build into the widgets to let you change. So if I control right-click, I go in there to say widget, where's that? Instance options right at the top. I'm going to click on that, instance options, and that's going to go ahead and pull up another little screen for me here. In this case, the one I clicked on only has 2 checkboxes. Is it standalone? Does it want me to show the outage details? Those are the properties I can modify. If I picked a different one, I may be able to do everything from change what text displays in certain areas or what type of layout it is. I could change kind of how things hover, things along those lines. It all depends on what the actual widget creator had in mind for me. I know with a lot of the different lists, I can set up the actual filter criteria to determine what's going to show up in that list. Is it only things that are assigned to that user? Is it only things that are active or open? I can determine all that kind of stuff in the widget instance settings. There are these capabilities beyond even necessarily what you might do, and some of it you might be able to tackle. But if you're a ServiceNow developer, you know what you're doing, these are some of the other things you can do. Right when I said control right-click and we saw that you could go into the page in the designer view, that's exactly what this is. This is the designer view. And over on the left-hand side, towards the top of this bar, of this left-hand kind of navigation area, as Jeff was saying, I can just click and drag to change what the layout of any particular section is. I can make it so it's one column and 50-50. I can make it so that it's, one kind of left-hand nav with a larger area. I can do all of that by just dragging and dropping over into the proper area that I want to modify of that particular page. Additionally, down below, I see I have all the widgets. This is where I can just take pre-built widgets, whether I've gotten them from the community, whether I've gotten them just out of box in ServiceNow. So long as I've already installed the widget into my instance or an update set or something, I can go ahead and click and drag those over. Now, like I said, once they're on the page, I could even, from right here, control right-click and go into the instance options, change what the actual options for that widget are. So I could use them on the same different pages, and that widget might do something slightly different for me on all different pages based on those settings that I configure. I mentioned how you can add a widget from the left-hand side. You can also modify the widget, as I mentioned, from doing control right-click and messing with it from there. You can also open the widget in the editor. And I'm going to show that on the next screen. You're going to see how once you're getting into actually modifying the code of a widget, things can get a little bit hairy, and you need to really know what you're doing. And we mentioned how you can restructure the layout by looking at everything here. So these are all the different things you can do as a developer pretty easily. And again, you don't necessarily need to know how to code for any of this. If you understand at least a little bit about what you're dealing with in ServiceNow, with the lists and the forms and different things along those lines, with the knowledge base, this is something that you could easily empower yourself to come in here and do. All from the left-hand navigation when you first start by going to the Service Portal configurator and jumping in from there to go ahead and start dragging and dropping and changing the colors. When you need to call for help, this big image on the right-hand side, I could get to by going to Control right-click, Widget and Editor. And that's what opened this up for me. I've got 3 different tabs. One is for the actual HTML. One's for what's going to happen on the client side. One that's going to happen on the server side, which isn't too bad if you're somebody that really develops and knows what they're doing in ServiceNow. But even myself, I don't dive into this stuff because it's different. It uses Angular. It uses Bootstrap. There's things you need to understand between how all of these different panels of script interact with one another and the special ways that you can store values and variables and how to work with them, that for me, it's out of my scope. And as far as I'm concerned, I would always need an expert that's actually done this and knows what they're doing. And that skill set is very hard to actually employ and keep on staff full time, because these are people that really know web development as well as really know ServiceNow, and that overlap tends to be smaller than you would imagine. So from that aspect, in my opinion, you're going to need to call for help whenever you're actually looking to modify one of these widgets and change how it works. Now, you can change those instance options all you want, but once you're actually changing the core widget of how it works, that's going to be when you're likely going to need to go ahead and call out for help. Similarly, if you're creating a new widget from scratch, if there's something that you need done that doesn't exist out of box, it's not something you can find in the community, you're more than likely going to have to call on somebody that really knows what they're doing with this. And often that means you're reaching out to a partner. Maybe somebody in your staff knows how to do this, but it's certainly some time that you're not going to be able to do it without knowing how to code and really having that experience there. And finally, while you can do a lot of drag and drops of the layouts, and correct me here if I'm wrong at all, Jeff, while I know you can do a lot of drag and drop and modification of layouts, if you really want this to look identical to, say, your company public-facing website, right? If you've got something along that and you want it to look just like that, then at that point, you likely need to reach out for help. Find somebody that really knows Bootstrap well that can build that theme, that layout exactly the way you want. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
Yes, yeah, I would agree. You're going to need to mainly modify the template and CSS portion of these widgets. You know, the functionality part, which is the client script and the server script, that's you may not really need to get into that if you're really just looking to change the theme to a more advanced customization. But you'll definitely need to have some HTML and CSS skills to be able to do that. And we're just really talking if you want the exact same style as as your corporate site. You know, and it could be just a little bit of modification that's required, you know, pretty light, or it could be pretty extensive depending on how much you want to change.
Definitely. Thanks, Jeff. Finally, and this is something that most of you understand already very well, really the intersection of when to call for help comes down to the complexity of the item that you're dealing with, what your timeline is, and what resources you already have on hand. In this particular example, we're talking about the complexity is high. So regardless of your timeline, your resources, you're already dealing with extremely high complexity, and odds are the resources that you have aren't somebody that knows how to do the advanced widget modification kind of stuff. So from that aspect, that's where I think you'll call out for help. Certainly, if you had a short timeline, but even if you had the resources, we're here to help you regardless of the complexity. Certainly, we can help you change your themes and your colors and drag and drop and do all that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of people on our staff that can handle with all that kind of level. And then it's when the next level comes of actually modifying the widgets and all of that, that's where we look to Jeff and his team to help us out and make those changes as necessary. So certainly, we would love to help you, but that's when I would recommend looking for a partner to help out, regardless who that is. Finally, your takeaways from this whole session here. You want to get ready for the employee experience. Make that a priority. Make it something that you focus on for your instance. I've done best practice talks in the past, and that's something that I harped on then as well, is if you don't get the buy-in from your actual end users, you're not going to be as successful. So you want to do the employee experience early, and you want to do it well, but at the same time, you have to have the core there and the core working properly. So generally, I call this kind of a phase 1.5 or phase 2. You get it up and running for the people that need to use the system on a daily basis, and then immediately you start to work on what's that employee experience look like, getting that service portal up and running. It's something that you should focus on. You shouldn't be afraid of it. You might need to reach out for people, but you can start by just going in, even in a dev instance, a demo instance, if you have one, of saying, hey, look, what can I do with Service Portal? How close can we get this to what we need without even having to do anything all that complex? The shift from CMS to Service Portal, if you already have an existing CMS, is going to be inevitable at some point. At some point, you're going to need to make this jump, and you're going to need to do the change. You might have a little bit of time, but it's better to start now, especially if you have a very robust, mature CMS. It's going to take you some time to get that rebuilt over into Service Portal properly. Coding isn't necessary for the basics, such as we said, the dragging and dropping of the layouts, the changing of the colors, changing of the titles and logos, and the changing of the instance options. You don't need to code for any of that, but it's when it comes to the more complex things, the development skills will add extra capabilities there, allow you to do a bit more. And finally, if you want high-end customization, you'll need outside help. We're here. I could ask you who you're going to call, but we're here for you. I'd love for you to call us. Jeff and his team are very much experts. They know what they're doing. They've dealt with the CMS for years. They've dealt with the Service Portal since before it was even officially released, and they're happy to help guide people through this process and get exactly what they're looking for. So that's what we've got. We'd love to hear your questions, your comments, anything that you might have for us that you were hoping this webinar would answer and didn't, so that we can help answer those questions for you. Tim, did you have anything that you knew people have been wondering about?
Yeah, so thanks, Garrett. First of all, I just want to say, Garrett, I don't know if you have time since we are a little bit run over. Otherwise, we can have Jeff handle the questions if you need to hop on to your next appointment at this point. Otherwise, feel free to stay on for the questions. One thing I did want to address is we did receive a question of someone that said, if we like our CMS, why should we switch over to Service Portal?
That's a great question. I've got a few minutes here, and I'll drop when I need to. I would say that the biggest reasons you would need to switch from your CMS to Service Portal, if you like it, would be kind of that ticking time clock of how long are they going to support stuff on the CMS. I know major clients that are not looking to move right now. They're like, look, we know we need to start the process. We're going to start that at some point in, say, Q3 of 2017. They're going to start working on making the move. But for now, they're like, I'm staying where I'm at. But that said, if you want to make sure that it's future-proof, that it's responsive, it's working on all devices, then you're going to be able to benefit from the new functionality. Such as in HR, there's some awesome functionality of being able to sign PDFs or fill out PDFs and different things along those lines. That's being built directly into the HR Service Portal. So with that aspect, at some point you're going to want to make the jump so you can also get all the new functionality of how these things work. Does anything else come to mind for you, Jeff, of reasons why people might want to move or might want to stick with CMS?
Yeah, I guess I would kind of echo what you said. If you are 100% happy with it, there is no rush to do it. Just knowing that eventually you will need to. But some of the big benefits that you're missing out on are some improved ticket views, the natural responsiveness of the portal, for mobile devices, and I'd also say the sustainability of it from a developer's perspective. Service Portal really makes it so much easier to maintain your portal, and say one developer leaves or one admin leaves and you have now a new one coming from someplace else, they're going to have a much easier time going into your portal and maintaining it. Because CMS typically, if you had a custom CMS implementation, that's kind of a chances are that it's a pretty difficult thing to jump into and find out where all the content blocks are pulling their information from and how things are linked together. At least in my experience, it can be that way. Because CMS was always built a different way depending on who built it. Service Portal is a much more standardized method of maintaining your widgets and your theme and things like that. So, you know, there are many benefits that you would get from going over to Service Portal. But yeah, if you're 100% happy, there's no rush to do it.
Now, how difficult is it going to be? I mean, for someone that does have CMS and eventually the clock runs out and they need to, you know, it's no longer going to be a supported aspect of ServiceNow if that happens. Is there already a tool in place that someone can, or do we anticipate that there will be some kind of a transitioning tool, or is that something that would require a lot more hands-on specific development?
Well, there is no tool, and I don't anticipate that there will be one for two reasons. One, if you have an out-of-box, or you know, if you're using a lot of native functionality in the CMS, you didn't really customize much, then it's going to be pretty easy to set up your service portal. You know, no tool should really be necessary. It'll be a really straightforward implementation, and you know, the configuration will be pretty simple. However, if you did customize your CMS, then there's just no way of knowing how it was customized, and no tool is going to be able to guess that. And so that's, you know, only if you have a pretty customized experience in CMS are you going to have a more challenging time transferring over to Service Portal, because you are going to have to rewrite that custom functionality in the form of Service Portal widgets. You know, there's a very good chance that all of your custom functionality is now going to have an opportunity to be much better, because, you know, especially if it's not Angular based. You know, I did a lot of CMS customizations and used AngularJS, so it was a really good experience. Those ones, you know, should still be pretty easy to port over, because all you're doing, you know, in CMS, you use script includes and UI scripts and content blocks and things like that to manage all of the code that you needed. In Service Portal, it's all the same concept, but now all that code is managed in one place. You know, you just take your script include in your UI script and you put it all into your widget record. And you know, and it takes a little bit of code updating, but you know. So I guess to sum it up, you will have a challenging time, or maybe not even challenging. It's just going to be more work if you have a customized CMS experience. If you used all out-of-box content blocks and menus and stuff, then it's going to be very, very easy.
Okay. And I should mention, obviously, this portion is getting a little bit more technical than the presentation that we had earlier. If people are interested in seeing a more technical approach to Service Portal, or getting their hands dirty a little bit more in Service Portal, let us know. Obviously, Jeff is the kind of guy that would love to do a presentation like that, and is very much equipped to get you what you need in that type of information. So if that's a presentation you guys would like to see, definitely, you know, make that a suggestion for us, and we will absolutely make that happen for you. I guess one last question that we'll take before we end the presentation, since we're already past that half-hour mark. But someone had asked about how they have widgets that they had created in Helsinki, and they heard they were concerned about upgrading over to Istanbul because they weren't sure how the widgets for their Helsinki and Service Portal were going to transfer over into Istanbul. They heard there was a problem there. So I was wondering, have you guys seen that as an issue, and what's the solution to that?
I have not seen that as an issue. Maybe if the application that you're interfacing with, say, you know, Service Catalog, you know, you built your widget to a very specific Service Catalog configuration, and then in Istanbul, you know, Service Catalog changes, then you may need to update your widgets. But the widgets themselves, I've not heard of any changes happening to where you'd have to rewrite them.
Okay. Okay, great. Let me do this.
And if there is a scenario, I'd very much like to see it, because I'd be
Sure.
very curious, you know, what would cause that.
Okay. Well, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for everyone who attended. If you do have any additional questions, still feel free to throw those into our question box. We will leave the webinar running for just a few more minutes to give you a chance to do that. And like I said, we will be posting this on YouTube. We will be sending out a recorded video to everyone. And if you guys have suggestions for our webinars in the future, definitely contact us and let us know, or through the survey that we'll be sending out shortly afterward. And we would love to hear your thoughts, and we'd love to put something together based on that subject. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.